Okay, so just now we didn't have that many people came back after lunch. A number of people disappeared. So as a result, we only had 2 groups. Do you have both groups back now? I think so. Okay, and did we have the representative from each group to do the reporting back? Okay, Conrad. And then this group, who's doing it? I told you not to bully the junior monk. Did they make you talk and then you have to write as well? Now you know what they do to junior monks. Okay, maybe we'll start with Conrad first.
Yeah. So it was really nice to hear everyone sharing about their experience in the path at the moment. And the points we had were reflecting on our practice using the Eightfold Path as a guide, back to basics, routines, reminders for mindfulness, more situational awareness and sense restraint, full moon practice, keeping the 8 precepts, present moment practice, bringing awareness to the body and what I'm doing, 5 precepts as a key thing, going forth, making the most and making a commitment to the practice in lay life. Fundamental purpose in life is to listen to the Dhamma. Code of conduct being the Samaññaphala Sutta. Mindfulness of thoughts and feelings, not fighting reality, keep learning. Mindfulness to enhance skills, for example, playing a particular board game. Precepts as protection, listen to Dhamma from different monks and nuns, Dhamma discussions with friends, mindfulness in daily life, gratitude for the practice and teachings available here, the Metta Sutta as a guide, balancing long retreats with lay life at home. So lay life at home being a place to apply the Dhamma to daily life, and long retreats being for seclusion and developing samadhi. Harmlessness to self and others, and the importance of spiritual friends, and looking after this body, knowing it's not going to last forever, so to keep it healthy to get the most chance to practice in this life.
Did the group have any questions that they want to raise, Conrad? Did the group have any other questions besides what you've noted on your paper? Yeah? All good? Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, you've got the mic. Good.
Okay, so in our group, I think the most common answer was just like listening to the suttas, finding peace, happiness, joy, inspiration from studying the suttas, visiting monasteries and coming here every week. I think that was repeated quite a few times. And then also trying to find room for seclusion, that was also a common answer. Mindfulness in daily activities, and one person said that they're trying to substitute more unwholesome activities with more wholesome activities. So, like instead of scrolling your phone, you're trying to practice sense restraint by focusing on like going for a walk, or like I think flowers were mentioned, like focusing on flowers instead of your phone. So I think that's a good substitution, probably. Yeah. And then also focusing and experiencing with right speech. So what is like, what does it actually mean? How does it feel to kind of restrain yourself if you feel like saying something that is not quite skillful, and seeing the effects. Trying to have some moderation in eating, and that was seen as a good way to support the practice. And then there a few people also said that they're very faith-based, and that there are like all these kind of little actions that have been conditioned from like very early age, and those will kind of feed your right view, and then when you read the suttas, it's quite natural that you see things there that you've been doing for a long time, like going to the monasteries and giving dana, and that is also like a source for more faith to come. And then also contentment was mentioned a few times, like of course for me because I just became a monk, so it's nice to read the suttas about like just being content with your bowl and robes. So I think that's probably enough. Does anyone have any?
Okay, very good. Ajahn, wasn't there a sutta about like the power of substitution, like substitute bad thoughts with good thoughts?
Yeah, that's the Vitakka Santana Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya 20. Yeah, so I don't like the word substitution, but it's like changing your perception basically and looking at things from a different point of view. But substitution sounds like too much force. It's like you just put it in there. But it's more like using your mind skillfully, yoniso manasikara. But one of the things that I noted that was absent from all of this discussion, I thought it was amazing. Conrad's group, I never heard so many factors before. That was remarkable and great. But one of the things that I did not hear, which is kind of interesting, and maybe that says something about the BSWA, there was nothing about rituals or chanting here. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. So what does that mean? Does that mean that you forgot it? Or does it mean that rituals and chanting are irrelevant? We should do more of them.
No, something.
So I don't know. I think that a little bit of rituals and a little bit of chanting also has a place on the path. Yeah, it's kind of part of the idea of faith maybe, and actually building up good qualities. Things like using Anjali and kind of bowing down to the Buddha or whatever, these are beautiful things. And I think they are, to my mind anyway, part of the practice as well. So I just wanted to, but I think it says something about our Buddhist society that we don't focus so much on those things. That was my only comment. What about you, Venerable?
I also noticed, it's excellent. People have thought so much, pretty much almost everything was there in a way. But one thing I noticed that was missing was right livelihood. It's also path factor, right? Considering, I'm sure most people are in a right livelihood, or are you? Some works might have some gray areas. It's nice to consider, because that you have to do, right? You have to work. Most people are going to work, and it's part of your life, and in fact 1/3 of your life. If you do 8 hours of work, in 24 hours, that's 1/3 of your life. What you do, your intentional work, brings up a lot. So I was interested that you didn't mention, or did you? I didn't catch that. Anyway, that's interesting to think about how you do your work, what kind of work you do, why you do, and its impact on your life, because it does affect a lot of work. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Good, excellent, marvelous, splendid. So, shall we continue? Yeah? So, Venerable, you want to carry on?
Yeah, so I wanted to actually start this session with practice in every wakeful moment to go along with your exercise. But before that, I would like to ask a question from the session, because we ran out of time, and also to just speak a little bit more about what Ajahn usually speaks very beautifully. I've heard many times in the last 20 years, how the path factors build on each other and grow stronger. So starting from right view all the way. But one of the things that when I was reflecting this, that didn't go inside me that well, is the reflection how right speech or right action leads to right livelihood, and how right livelihood leads to right effort. So emphasizing those points, but if you were to speak the whole thing, how they build up, would be great, Ajahn.
Yeah, okay, I don't really have that much more to say, but because, one of the ideas of the gradual training is that the early factors are carried forward as you develop the later factors. So every factor, in a sense, like, when you start out with faith and then you do right action and right speech, those are then carried on through the later factors. So when you come to right effort, right mindfulness, those other factors are also there. Yeah, they come with it. And so you are, not only do they come with it, but you are building them up. They're strengthened through the later factors. And so there is a sequence, but it's a sequence more like an accumulation of good qualities, or an accumulation of virtues that become stronger and stronger. But the later factors can only be developed based on the earlier ones. But the early ones are then reinforced in this way. And so I think this is an important point. So the further down you are on the path, the more generous and the more virtuous you're going to be. This is kind of one of those beautiful things. If you see someone who is practicing really well and who have the Dhamma kind of deeply embedded within, they will be incredibly generous. There's no one more generous than the Buddha. There's no one more generous than an arahant. And if someone is really stingy, but they claim to be an arahant, then bit dodgy. Don't trust it. Don't kind of go for it. And so, so this, anyway, that I think was just one factor I wanted to mention here.
How about that right action leading to right livelihood and right livelihood leading to right effort?
Yeah.
And I'm asking you the question.
What?
So I want to know.
Why? How right livelihood with right effort?
Yeah.
But, okay. So the way I understand that is that right speech, right action, and right livelihood are really just factors of virtue, and that you can't really distinguish them. I don't think there is a natural sequence from one to the other one. So on the Noble Eightfold Path, you see right speech coming first, samma vāca, then right action, samma kammanta, then right livelihood. In the Gradual Training, it's actually right action before right speech. That's kind of strange, right? There's different sequence there. Gradual Training is different from the Noble Eightfold Path. Why is that? Is that because the monks were lazy and didn't remember properly? Maybe, but there is no evidence for that because all the various traditions have the same problem. So it seems to be embedded in the suttas. And I think the reason is that actually there isn't any sequence, that they are equivalent. And so the Buddha changed the sequence a little bit just to show that they are equivalent. And I would say all of those three factors, right livelihood, right action, and right speech, are just virtue, basic, ordinary virtue, how we interact with people in daily life. And then right effort, the reason why that builds on the previous ones is because, first of all, comes the ordinary virtues of daily life, speech, action, including livelihood. Then comes the mental good conduct, and right effort is a focus on mental good conduct. It's again this idea that the path is gradual. You start with the coarser aspects of virtue, you move on to the more refined ones. The more refined ones is the mind. Speech and action, difficult as they may seem, are easier than mental good conduct. So that's how I understand these things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so I also just want to ask everybody, did you practice moderation in eating during lunch? We shall find out. Who's sleepy? Anybody sleepy? So I'm asking that because I'm going to tell a story. Is that okay? Supposed to be serious workshop with lots of technical things, but I'm going to just tell a story. So this is the slide you're going to see. There's nothing much on it except two nuns, one looking very happy and peaceful, the other one looking scared and want to run away, and there is a snake. And it says, practice in every wakeful moment. So some of you may have heard this story because it's one of my favorite stories if you have heard some of my Dhamma talks. But anyway, I'm sure there is some who haven't heard. But anyway, I enjoy saying it myself to wake myself up because I don't think I practiced moderation in eating either. So this is the story. This is actually an actual real story from my own life. was at Dhammasara Nuns Monastery. I'm actually from Perth for a long time. And in 2021, I moved to Santi Forest Monastery to help out with the management there. So when I first arrived in a new monastery, it's a really beautiful, this is the time to just advertise. Not that we need advertising, it's a really beautiful 150-acre forest monastery adjacent to Morton National Park, which is a very beautiful big forest. We have waterfalls, caves, and all these kind of real wild forest there. So of course you're there for the first time and you're going to sort of take on the role of managing and looking after and keeping the place going. So one of the important things is to get familiar with the place. So one really beautiful sunny morning, I decided to go for a walk. I went for a walk alone, not with another nun, as you see here, but I went for a walk alone. So when you walk alone and in a new place, especially a wild forest, how do you normally walk? You walk a little bit mindfully, right? You first of all don't want to get lost. You want to find your way back. It's a large forest. And also you don't know, you're not familiar with what kind of animals you might meet or, things like that. So you mindfully walk quietly and nicely. I was walking. Then I met another nun who I was with. She had the same idea. So she also thought to have a walk and get familiar. So what happened when two people meet? We start talking, right? What happens when we start talking? Your mindfulness drops a bit, right? Luckily, the other nun had more mindfulness than me, but I had good karma, which is why I'm sitting here and talking to you, because the picture is giving away half the story. So, as we were walking, she was actually walking in front of me. I was slightly behind in a much more narrow path in reality than the picture. She suddenly put her hand out to stop me and to just see a really big black snake in front of us. Just that close, actually. It was that close by the time we stopped. It was a red belly black. I don't know whether you are familiar with New South Wales snakes. That's one of the very poisonous ones, would not give you much time to live. And by the time we were about half an hour's walk from the main area where there is phones, cars, and people. So this is quite far. So even if you scream, no chance. If you got bitten by the snake, by the time you try to walk back, you'll be dead because poison would go, right? So it's kind of very deadly situation. So, what would be your reaction if that was you? You're so close to a snake and it actually has, just like in the picture, lifted itself up and was ready to strike. What would be your reaction? Huh? Run, yes, that's exactly what I wanted to do, because I was scared. I thought I want to run because it's so scary. What's another response people normally do? Freeze. Some people freeze. Some people say they scream because they get scared. They don't think about it. They scream because they're scared. I can't do Ajahn Brahm like last night scream. And since we are all Buddhists, we won't say the fourth response. But there are people who try to kill it as well, right? Some people kill. When they see a snake, a dangerous animal, they also try to kill. So killing, running, screaming, or freezing. These are kind of responses when we get scared, if our life is threatened, that kind of situation. This kind of thing happens. So this is our natural kind of reactions. So I too wanted to run, but the nun in front of me held my hand. In reality, she's much smaller and much bigger, and sweet nun. Because she was calm, I calmed down. I was thinking, what are you doing? Let's run. But I had no, she was grasping me quite strongly. But because she's calm, I calmed down. And then we just froze like for a little while, became very quiet. And I can remember the snake's glassy eyes looking at me, was watching, ready to act any time. But we were very peaceful. And gently we took a few steps back. And after that, the other nun, what she did was the interesting part. Very different response. I would use the word response, not a reaction. Right? You know the difference between reaction and response? Anyway, we'll come to that. Anyway, she spoke to the snake in the sweetest kind of voice. She's already a very sweet person. And smiled and speak these really beautiful words. I can't act it. I'm not that sweet. But anyway, she said, "Oh, we didn't know you were here. We were just going for a walk. It's such a beautiful day. You must be enjoying your sunbathing. Have a really nice day." You know, she spoke to the snake. I was thinking, I was shocked because I never expected such a thing, right? You never expect when you are in front of something that could kill you, a frightening kind of time, for somebody to respond in this way. Of course, if you know snakes, snakes can't hear, they're deaf. They only hear vibrations. But even if they heard, they don't know English, right? Even if they know English, they don't know concepts like sunbathing and have a nice day. But did the snake understand the message? Yes, if you have any pets, you know, right? You know animals can feel your heart. So even though they didn't understand the concept, it felt that it was treated with respect. It wasn't disrespect with "You stupid snake, what are you doing? This is our monastery, get out of my way." We didn't say that, right? We treated and spoke very differently. And we spoke in a very kind, gentle words that goes to the heart. If I was that snake, I would have been flattered the way she spoke, actually, which I can't, unfortunately, act in the same way. And the loving kindness, the all that in your heart, you can feel, because you can feel another person if they have love, compassion, respect for you, right? Even they're silent, you can feel that in their heart. So of course the snake had felt all of those things, the way that we interacted. So, interesting choice, isn't it? When we meet a snake, we said most people would either kill, run, scream, or freeze. Nobody said, "Oh, we'll have a nice chat, respectful, kind," We never thought about that. But we have that choice, but we never thought about that. Interesting, isn't it? So, my question is, do you meet black snakes in your day-to-day life? Not just like these ones, but black snake situations, right? Situations where fear is triggered, anger is triggered, anxiety, worry, even strong desires. All of unwholesome mind states can trigger, like black snake-like situations you can face in your day-to-day life. And what are your reactions when you are faced with something like that? Also, sometimes you see people scream to the other person or at the situation. Or some people just run away from the situation. Some people freeze. Some people kill the situation with verbal daggers, right? We still react in that kind of way. But every day, every time, in any situation, we forget that we do have that other choice, to act with kindness, to act with wisdom, right? Act with this kind of wholesome qualities. We do have this choice. So every wakeful moment, we are receiving the world, right? When I say receiving the world, we receive the world through our eyes. We see sights. We receive the world through our ears. We hear things. We smell, we taste, we receive touches. And we also have thoughts. So as we receive life, as life happens, how do you hold those experiences in your heart? And then, how do you respond? Usually we have reactions, impulsive reactions, already preconditioned, and for many people in life, they are not necessarily very wholesome side. We end up doing things that are unskillful by body, speech, and mind. Not necessarily the practicing people, but if you think about world in a normal way, if somebody shouts at you, you shout back. If somebody hits, people hit back. You do something and not necessarily very skillful. So this is where we can actually practice, apply the Noble Eightfold Path, actually every wakeful moment. As you receive life and respond to life, we can actually apply. That's what I wanted to bring this up. So because we were talking about practice in day-to-day life, right? Gradual training or Noble Eightfold Path. At the end of the day, we want to not only know the theory, not to know how all of this work, but we want to be able to apply, and when we need to understand how we apply. And this is how we do it. So I'm going to expand this a little bit more. So where does right view come into this? So in the gradual training, after meeting the Buddha and having heard the Dhamma, you have understood some teachings. So I can take just one aspect because I don't have time to go through everything. So this can be your homework, your own mental activity, like thinking about it later, because right view is big. But let's just take right view, the aspect of karma. Your intentional actions have consequences, right? So if you act by body, speech, and mind in a skillful way, you have good karma, and as a result, you have a good rebirth or something that is wholesome. But if you did act in an unskillful way, then you have unskillful consequences. So in this occasion, as we meet a snake, right view reminds, if we kill the snake, hurt the snake, or do something unskillful like that, who's going to reap the consequences? Us, right? So think about it. When somebody's giving you a hard time, shouting at you, the difficult person in front of you, the way you do, if you remember the karmic consequence, would you ever talk back in a bad way? Would you ever scream and scold somebody? We won't, right? But we forget. So aspect of right view. So right view is just like, for me, it's like glasses, right? So you have your right view glasses and you can see the world. You can receive the world through your right view filter. Glasses for eyes, you must have some ears as well, like that. So it's like whatever experience you filter it through right view. You remember, in this occasion, I'm just talking about karma. You can take other aspects as well, like impermanence, conditionality. All of those we can do, but this is just to show even just using karma. If you remember that, then you become careful. Okay, how can I act skillfully? So once right view comes up, then right intention. So you act with, non-ill will. Instead, kindness and non-harm, non-cruelty, right? So we didn't kill the snake, harmlessness was practiced. So right intention, the way the nun reacted was there. Then right speech, the words that you spoke went to the heart, not scolded, not lying, none of those. Beautiful speech you can do, right? And action. So, and doing all of that, doing something that is wholesome and refraining from doing the unwholesome in that occasion, that is your right effort, right? So, and then in order to do all of that, you do need a degree of mindfulness. So that mindfulness is there. And you also need to be kind of focused on what you're doing, right? If your mind is so distracted outwardly or stuck inside, and then you can't also apply yourself properly. So there is a degree of samadhi there. It's not the highest form, not the jhana, but still in a wholesome way your mind is still and peaceful and you're applying yourself. So just remembering this, with this incident, you can now think about every day, every wakeful moment, as you interact with people, with situations, you can and you must apply, if you are serious on the path, the Noble Eightfold Path, all the factors. See and receive your experience with right view. Respond with right intention, right action, right speech. Doing that is right effort. And being able to do that, you need mindfulness and peace of your mind, right? Then you are applying. So this is what I wanted to bring out in the day-to-day life. It is nice that you do all of those other things that you mentioned, going on retreats, listening to Dhamma. All of that is to sort of prepare yourself. And then this is where also how in every wakeful moment, it's not only when you go to the temple or to the retreat, but every time, all the time, we can start building up the Noble Eightfold Path or parts of the gradual training at a daily level. And if you look after your mind in this way, if you've been doing and trying to do the best, this is how you look after your mind, would you have much regrets and remorse? because you would have done your best. Surely we will make mistakes. That's natural because we have defilements. But we know we have tried our best. So when you do not have regrets and remorse, that is the starting point of meditation, right? From the Na Cetana Karaniya sequence, which you have heard many times by Ajahn Brahmali. Sorry, you are Ajahn Sujata beginning. Sorry, I can't believe I mixed you up. And also we will be talking about it in our next session as well, the sequence, how these build up. But that is the starting point, right? If your mind has no regret and remorse, such a mind is glad. That is the pamoja. Your mind is uplifted, elevated, right? And from there, it develops all the way to meditation. I'm not going to go there. It's beyond the scope of today's class. But just to show, if you're doing like that, you're doing much of the practice, much of the gradual training, whether you are a monastic, whether you are a lay person, here, now, every moment you are practicing. Because some people feel guilty, I'm busy, I have a life, I have children, I have this, I have that, I have no time to practice. But you are living your life. So how you live your life? Yeah, you always have choice. So make the right choice. Yeah, it is always possible. And if you do that, then you will be not only learning about this, you will be practicing this. So this is what I wanted to say here. Ajahn, do you want to add something?
No.
No?
But what I would like is a cup over there. The cup is empty, I think. Yeah, sadhu, thank you.
Okay, then while you drink your coffee, I will go into the next. How is it a gradual training? So Ajahn already spoke a little bit about this at the beginning, so we want to go deeper from this point onwards. So I have taken this from MN 70 Kitagiri Sutta. I'm sorry I didn't put it into the reading list. I have put MN 95, which is Chunky Sutta, which also has the same sequence, so it doesn't really matter, but I liked this later, so I used this one. So here it starts like this. Bhikkhus, I do not say that final knowledge is achieved all at once. On the contrary, final knowledge is achieved by gradual training, by gradual practice, by gradual progress. And how is final knowledge achieved by gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress? Here, one who has faith in the teacher visits him. So in this sequence, it starts like this. So in the gradual training, it was starting from a little bit before than that, a rising of the Buddha and the Dhamma. So after the Buddha has arisen, he had started teaching, and then there are other disciples as well who has gone forth. And so anybody who is now practicing well according to the Buddha's teachings and a teacher, so it could be the Buddha, it could be any one of his disciples who's practicing well, and then one gains a faith in a teacher. But in the Chunky Sutta, it has few more very important steps which I will mention, which is not in the slide. How do you gain faith in a teacher? Faith or confidence in a teacher. The Buddha, it's easy. So that is where we need to really put our confidence in. But sometimes we also do need to have, some people have a feeling, a real life teacher in this day and time too. And we have to be very, very careful in choosing our teachers, because it's quite common who we think and take on board as our Kalyana Mitta, true friend, sometimes turn around and become our Papa Mitta also. This is also, you see the corruption that happens even in the monastic world, unfortunate, in all religions as well. So we have to be very careful, and the Buddha warned about it. So the Buddha mentioned this in the Chunky Sutta, which is MN 95. The Buddha says, first of all, you go and visit this person. This is prior to this point. And sort of observe and see whether in this venerable one, whether you can see strong desires coming in, like anger, ill will, and negative states coming in, lots of ego, sense of self, those greed, hatred, and delusion. Based on those, can you see strong defilements coming in? Because it is hard. It's not easy when you meet somebody only at a Dhamma talk or at a retreat when they're performing to know, right? So you got to go sometimes and live in a monastery and see these people in a real life, in ordinary situation. After a period of time, it's hard to know who is a really amazing, like achieved person, but it's not that hard to find out who isn't. Because sooner or later, you will see when you start pressing the button, especially, you might end up seeing, a little bit of strong desires coming up and things. It's not to judge people too critically, not to find this perfect person, but to be careful not to follow somebody who's really has a lot of defilements either. So this is in the sutta, so the Buddha says, so after a period of time, you start to gain confidence. Yes, this Venerable One actually speak the word of the Buddha. It seems like this person also has been practicing and they are teaching what they are practicing, which is the word of the Buddha. So once you, in a very practical way, have sort of established a degree of confidence, then the Buddha says it is important, then you start visiting them. And after visiting, he pays respect to them. Interesting point, right? Do you have to pay respect? How do you have respect? Is it just bowing down, like automatically bowing down? Respect is in your heart, right? Respect is when you see positive qualities, good qualities. You have a certain degree of respect. Why is respect important in this gradual training, in this sequence? If somebody spoke to you with disrespect, would you listen? You don't, right? If somebody spoke to you disrespectfully in day-to-day life too, even if what they say is true, it's hard, right? You don't really... So only if you have respect, and if somebody speaks to you respectfully, and if you have respect to somebody, that communication, both listening and speaking, is productive. So also you only listen to somebody that you have respect, right? Otherwise you don't listen to somebody. That's why sometimes you have to, in the normal world, outside world, there's just the bios, right? You read the bio of a person. If you're going to a conference and listen to a talk, you need to know what are their credentials and all that, just in that way, right? At least to know who are you going to listen. So you have to develop some kind of respect to the person. So if you have respect, and in the Dhamma path, so that aspect of respect done in the correct way is necessary, because only if you have respect will you give the ear. That is when that you will listen. You will not listen unless you have any respect to somebody. So the Buddha says, so after that you will give the ear. So that means you will listen, and then you will start hearing the Dhamma. So can you see beautifully, you first find somebody who you establish respect and confidence, then you visit them and you have respect. In the Chanki Sutta, it even has another aspect. You also have pema, affection, also for your teacher, in the right kind of way, not the wrong kind of way. It's very scary in the world how these things can turn around, but the right kind of very respectful affection and care for your teacher. And then you hear the Dhamma. And once you hear the Dhamma, then you memorize the Dhamma, the teachings. It is important, because if you don't remember the teachings, then you can't apply, you don't know what to do, right? So this is part of your yoniso manasikara is now also coming into it, different words, but this is called vachasa parichita. So you memorize the teachings. So they're at the tip of your tongue, so you can bring them when you need to. And then he examines the meaning of the teaching he has memorized. So this is when, once you remember the teachings, then you can put two and two together. Oh, in this discourse, the Buddha explained it like this. In here, he explained like this. How does this work? How do I apply this to my life? And when you do that kind of mental investigation and examination, suddenly you have a light bulb moment. You have, I get it. It makes sense. I understand, right? We've all had this kind of point. So this is what the Buddha is saying. So once you have memorized, then you examine the meaning. Then he gains that reflective acceptance. That is, after that aha moment, you have that reflective acceptance of those teachings. So once you have now taken on board the right view, so this is now slowly imbuing the right view. So this is the teacher is actually telling through Dhamma aspects of right view. So that right view is now growing inside of you. You have started to accept. That's the first point. So right view has started to now take root. So once you have that reflective acceptance of the teaching, then when he has gained reflective acceptance of those teachings, zeal springs up. So once you have understood right, I understand how important the path is, this is how the path works, you get energy. This is how us monastics end up being monastics, because we realize we want to even commit our life. You want to say something? No. Enter our life, or you have become really serious practitioners because you had that energy. Yeah, this is important, this is worthwhile doing, and that came because you have now started to get a right view into your psyche. You understand, so that energy, zeal, springs up inside of you, and this is really important.
What is the Pali word for zeal? Have you checked it up?
I can't remember. Chanda.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Chanda.
Yeah, chanda. Yeah, chanda is your So so your inspiration also gives that energy, right? So it's a very natural thing. It's not that you have to grit your teeth and do it. It's very natural, done in this way. It's effortless, but it's also full of energy. I'm sure most of you know and experience this when you heard some good teachings, naturally inspired to live and practice that teaching. And from there, when zeal has sprung up, he applies his will, in the sense, Ajahn Brahm doesn't like to use the word will, in the sense that you have your right intention. You work with intention. Okay, you want to put a different word?
I don't want to. I just can't remember what the Pali is.
Okay, you can look it up if you want. Okay?
Never mind.
Yeah. Because I didn't want to spend too much time, I didn't. We can have a look. Anyway, so he applies his will. So you actually engage, right, with intention. It's not like path happens unintentionally. One day you wake up and you are enlightened. No, you are fully engaged. Yeah, you intend. This is where even in the snake simile, you have a choice. You realize, how you apply yourself, right? You can intentionally do either wholesome way or unwholesome way. So you apply yourself, but you're now inspired to do the right way, to refrain yourself from doing harm, from doing the wrong thing. And because sometimes doing the right thing could be difficult, but you are now more inspired because you realize the consequences and all of those things. So this is how, so that you apply your will, and then having applied will, he scrutinizes. Right, so he sort of look into things and try to understand, figure things out, and he also strives. Yeah, so then he really put forth the effort. This is the right effort in the Noble Eightfold Path. Is that the Pali words are pretty inspiring for anybody who knows the Pali. Chandan janeti, Chandan janeti, viryang arabati, chittam paganhati, padahati. Right, really powerful. So you have that inspiration, you have that initial intention to want to do it. You gather all of your energy. You establish your mind, and you go for it. Kind of, I don't know, nice ways to say it. You want to say something?
No, not all that much, but but those words that you just mentioned now are actually not the words that I used here in this particular sutta.
Right.
These are different words. So here, scrutinize is actually, Pali word is tuleti, and tuleti means like to measure. And that's kind of interesting. Why measure? What are you actually measuring here? And I think this is a very important part of the practice, is that you have to measure your own progress, how you're going, what are the defilements that you have, and then compare that to the suttas. It's like a measurement. You always kind of, am I improving or not improving here? And this is fundamental to be able to continue to make progress, and then you strive accordingly.
And also the measurement could also be with the moral shame and moral fear as well, right? You measure the situation and also realize things. That is also a measurement.
I suppose,
Yeah. So I'm sorry I didn't have the Pali words, but technically, so something like that. And then resolutely striving, he personally realized the supreme truth and ceased by penetrating it with wisdom. So just to bring it out, probably this is a sutta that is nice for people to go deep, do your own reflections, or have another sutta class with one of the venerables in Perth, because it is nice to see it's not only about learning, but this is the way how you actually apply yourself, how the path works, from taking on board the teachings, internalizing it, and applying yourself. That is one of the aspects that Yoniso Manasikara and Dhamma Patipatti, right? So applying yourself. So all of that method, the technique of doing that is given in suttas like this. But there is a shorter version which also comes up in many suttas, which I don't have in the slide, but there are 5 things. Sutta, datta, vachasa, parichita, manasanupekkita, ditthya, suppatividdha. So sutta means you listen. Datta means you retain what you have listened. Vachasa parichita is you memorize it. Manasa anupekkita means you mentally inspect. And ditthya suppatividdha, you get a right view, a reflective understanding. So shorter version of that, this is how you actually become learned. This is how the Dhamma gets internalized. And there's other very beautiful suttas in Anguttara 4, I forgot, 168 maybe, where the Buddha says, because some people are worried about, I'm practicing, I might not get enlightened and I might die. Do I have to learn all of these again? Do I have to go to another workshop in my next life? All what I learned, is that going to be wasted? This kind of thing happens. What happened if I don't get enlightened? But the Buddha said, if you do this process, if you did it properly, then those things has gone into your psyche. It is in your stream of consciousness, it is carried through, and you will be born in a good place. Like a little deva, there's 4 things, but the last one is really cute. And in there, it's like this, the mindfulness is very sluggish to come. So this deva is now getting carried away, playing, enjoying himself in the deva world, and another friend comes. And they have been practicing together in the past. And then say, hey, I remember you, I've seen you at Dhammaloka. We did this workshop together, remember? We listened to these teachings together. Just like saying, remember when we were kids, we used to play in the mud. Do you remember we were making mud cakes and having a good time? So like that, he will remember. And then suddenly, all the things that you have properly learned. So this is the proper way of learning, is there, and you'll be able to go from there. Otherwise, if you just there's another sutta, it's like, you listen, by the time you're not even listening properly, you don't even hear. You go out and say, that was a nice Dhamma talk. What was it about? Can't remember. Because the moment you get up, everything's finished. So then that kind of listening to the Dhamma isn't going to help much. But if you do this process, if you go through all of that, at least that 5 things, listening, retaining, memorizing, mentally inspecting, and it becomes a view, then it is there. So it is important. So I just wanted to make the point.
It's very demanding, isn't it? Do people actually, is it realistic for people to do this?
It's easy.
It's easy, is it? Yeah. Okay.
I don't know, for me.
Okay.
That's what I felt.
What about
is it difficult?
What about lay people? Is it
difficult?
It's harder.
Why?
I don't know. I'm asking you. I'm not saying it is one way or the other. Just a question.
And when Buddha say yes, why? But, it's important, the Buddha says. Otherwise, it's a waste of a life. It's a waste of a time.
Yeah. So, okay.
That's all I wanted to say. So this is how to see it's gradual. So you can see it's a long process, right? You have to keep listening, keep memorizing, slowly inspecting, and you grow, things start to grow. So this is why it was a gradual training, a gradual practice, and a gradual progress, right? So they build up. Your right view starts to become stronger and stronger. And when your right view is stronger, your intentions become better. You can renounce things. You can do, like Ajahn Brahm says, let go, make peace, be kind is easier, right? With the right view grows. So when you have right intention, of course, your speech and actions going to be good. and you will actually do the right livelihood. People change careers sometimes when they realize, right? And then, of course, that is putting on right effort. So it becomes almost like an effortless process after that, but you slowly grow in these factors. More you do, the more you grow. So this is another way to look at, because this sequence is different to the other, but everything is actually there. That's why you mentioned also there are many suttas. It's everywhere you go, that's what the Buddha teach.
Yeah. I think the Buddha always sets the bar really high, and because he sets it at the highest level, so that we can we have something to aspire for, something to measure up against. And for a lot of people, it's going to be impossible to reach these highest levels. I mean, for monastics, maybe; for lay people, more difficult. But so people shouldn't feel kind of bad if they can't memorize all the sutras or anything like that. But it is setting the bar high, just to kind of remind yourself what the ideal is. And then you have something you can kind of strive or kind of, look towards or look as the ideal way of practicing. I think that's kind of important point maybe here as well. But I agree, it's really nice. It's really, really beautiful. So thank you for bringing in this marvelous sutta. It's really excellent.
Okay. So now we are going to go into the next phase of our thing, how to train an elephant.
Before we do that, we should have a break, I think.
Okay.
We're going for almost an hour already. So, yeah.
Meditate?
Yeah, a little bit of meditation, and then we do some more Q&A afterwards. Please also use the break for stretching your legs and toilet visits or whatever else you require. Need some more coffee?
I have no milk, so I can't drink.
Can't drink it? Really? Okay.
I can't drink
Let's look up. Yeah. All right. Okay. So, shall we carry on?
Questions?
I don't know. I thought maybe...
At the end.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Is that okay with everyone? We do questions at the end rather than now. Would that be all right? We can kind of accumulate a vast amount of questions for the for the last part. It's a bit more flexible at the end, so it's maybe easier that way. So, okay. So, okay. So now we are going to look at coming back more directly to the gradual training. Everything is really part of the gradual training, but this is going to focus more directly on the gradual training. And one of the things we want to do is to go through all the steps of the gradual training in detail and to see what they mean. So far we have looked more at general issues and general ideas, and now we want to focus on all the details. But before we get to the actual details, we want to look at a simile. There's a simile in the suttas for the gradual training. And a simile is the training of an elephant. So the elephant, we are all a bit like elephants, and so we have to be trained like elephants. And so this is kind of the... So we want to... Similes are often very useful because they broaden out our understanding of what is going on. Similes give kind of a different angles on things, and they add something that is often not easily accessed through just ordinary prose or whatever. So similes are incredibly useful, and it is one of those remarkable things in the suttas is the large number of similes and how kind of beautifully they are put together by the Buddha. And this is one of these. It's quite an extended and long simile. So let's see what the Buddha has to say. So this is from the Danta Bhumi Sutta, which means like the ground of the tamed, or something like that, found in the middle-length sayings of the Buddha. And so this is where you get a wild elephant, and you make that wild elephant into a king's elephant, like a noble elephant. And that's like turning a wild human being into a noble human being. Yeah. Does that sound good? Yeah. It's interesting how the Buddha uses the word wild. Yeah, human beings are considered wild when the defilements are running riot. That's kind of the wild human beings, because the mind is out of control. That's kind of the idea of the wildness. Whereas the noble human being, the mind is kind of focused. You feel like you are in charge of yourself. You don't feel like you're out of control. It feels like you are in control. Wouldn't that be nice to feel in control? Yeah, would be, right? It's kind of good to be in feeling that you can choose how you want to react to things. You can choose how you want to think. You can choose whether you want to enter samadhi or not, whether you want to be peaceful, whether you want to enjoy joy. So all of these things, that's kind of what this training is about. So let's have a quick look at this simile. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but let's have a look. Movie to watch. That's a good point. Yeah. So Venerable Karunika has put together a movie which shows the simile. So it has a nice Indian accent to it. So listen carefully so you get the message. There
is no sound connected to the video. AV team, we need help.
Have you started?
Yeah, sound was not connected. Yes.
I think it's enough, otherwise I might just get contaminated.
I can't drink without milk, so it's fine.
With emphasis on should, is that right? Or no? Okay, see what happens.
Suppose Agivasana, a head-anointed noble king, addresses his elephant woodsman thus: Good elephant woodsman, mount the king's elephant, enter the elephant wood. And when you see a forest elephant, bind him by the neck to the king's elephant. Having replied, Yes, sire, the elephant woodsman mounts the king's elephant, enters the elephant wood, and when he sees a forest elephant, binds him by the neck to the king's elephant. The king's elephant leads him out into the open. It is in this way that a forest elephant comes out into the open, for the forest elephant clings to the elephant wood. Then the elephant woodsman informs the head-anointed noble king: Sire, the forest elephant has come out into the open. The king addresses his elephant tamer thus: Come, good elephant tamer, tame the forest elephant. Subdue his forest habits, subdue his forest memories and intentions, subdue his distress, fatigue, and fever over leaving the forest. Get him to take delight in the town. Inculcate in him habits congenial to human beings. Having replied, Yes, sire, the elephant tamer plants a large post in the earth and binds the forest elephant to it by the neck in order to subdue his forest habits, and to inculcate in him habits congenial to human beings. Then the elephant tamer addresses the elephant with words that are gentle, pleasing to the ear, and lovable, as go to the heart, are courteous, desired by many, and agreeable to many. When the forest elephant is addressed by such words, he listens, gives ear, and exerts his mind to understand. The elephant tamer next rewards him with grass fodder and water. When the forest elephant accepts the grass fodder and water from him, the elephant tamer knows, now the king's elephant will live. Then the elephant tamer trains him further thus: Take up, put down. When the king's elephant obeys his tamer's orders to take up and put down and carries out his instructions, the elephant tamer trains him further thus: Go forward, go back. When the king's elephant obeys his tamer's orders to go forward and go back and carries out his instructions, the elephant tamer trains him further thus: Get up, sit down. When the king's elephant obeys his tamer's orders to get up and sit down and carries out his instructions, the elephant tamer trains him further in the task called imperturbability. He ties a giant plank to his trunk. A man with a lance in his hand sits on his neck. Men with lances in their hands surround him on all sides, and the elephant tamer himself stands in front of him holding a long lance pole. When the elephant is being trained in the task of imperturbability, he does not move his forelegs or his hind legs. He does not move his forequarters or his hindquarters. He does not move his head, ears, tusks, tail, or trunk. The king's elephant is able to endure blows from spears, blows from swords, blows from arrows, blows from other beings, and the thundering sounds of drums, kettle drums, trumpets, and tom-toms. Being rid of all faults and defects, purged of flaws, he is worthy of the king, in the king's service, considered one of the factors of a king.
Wow, that's very dramatic. Wake people love, that's right. Yeah, yeah, that's right. So, so you counter immoderation in eating with immoderation in movie. Okay, okay, very good.
It's Dhamma movie.
Dhamma movie. Yeah. Okay, so that I don't know if you got most of that. Probably did. It was reasonably clear. So let's have a quick look at this. Now, one of the things when we talk about similes is that they're never going to be 100% one-to-one aligned with the suttas. It had to give a general feeling. And so it is impossible to really say exactly what these things mean. Yeah, they don't really have necessarily a one interpretation that is correct. There are many ways of interpreting this. So mostly it's to give a feeling. Where the suttas are dry and more intellectual, the similes often give rise to a feeling instead. So let's have a look at what might be, or one way of thinking about this. So how do I progress? This one here. Okay, yeah. So first of all, it starts with the idea of an anointed aristocratic king. Yeah, these are the great monarchs of ancient India. They went through a ceremony of annotation. These were the great kings of large kingdoms. There were many petty or minor kings, but these were the great ones. And they're always called Maharaja in the suttas. It literally means great king. And so I take this to be the Buddha. Yeah, the Buddha is the great king, and sometimes in the suttas the Buddha is called the Dhamma Raja. The king of the Dhamma is one of the names of the Buddha, one of the many epithets. There are suttas in the Majjhima Nikaya like the Sela Sutta and the Upali Sutta that just have an enormous list of epithets of the Buddha, the various kind of ways that he is thought of. And that's kind of interesting, just to read those epithets. One of those is Dhamma Raja. So the head anointed Kshatriya is the aristocratic king. It's one of the 4 varnas, the 4 castes of ancient India. So what does this aristocratic king, what does he do? He addresses, he speaks to people, he tells people what to do. What does the Buddha tell people to do? He tells an elephant tracker. So who is this elephant tracker? Well, the elephant tracker can be regarded as the Buddha's kind of primary disciples, the Aryas, the noble ones, bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, maybe some lay people as well. And he speaks to them and he tells them. What does he tell them? Well, he tells them to train others. You find this directly in the suttas where the Buddha says, go out into the world for the benefit and happiness of the many and teach the Dhamma to everyone. So this is kind of the elephant trackers, maybe people like Venerable Sariputta Mahamoggallana. And he tells them to mount the royal bull elephant. And the royal bull elephant here can maybe be understood as the Dhamma. You kind of mount the Dhamma, the Dhamma is what you bring with you, and the Dhamma is what has the power to inform the wild elephants and then bring them out into the open, as we just saw in that video. So you kind of mount the Dhamma, you take the Dhamma with you, and then what you do? You enter the elephant wood. So what is the elephant wood? Well, the elephant wood is just the ordinary world, right? The world of ordinary people, the world of the 5 senses, the world where people are kind of clinging to. They enter the elephant wood and they see a wild bull elephant. This idea of the wild elephant again, the untrained mind. And when you see the wild bull elephant, what you do? You tether it by the neck to the royal bull elephant. So what does that mean, to tether it by the neck? And the way I understand that is that the tether is like faith. So you teach the Dhamma to this bull elephant, to this wild elephant. Maybe you don't even teach the Dhamma, maybe you just have a presence, you are there, and people get inspired by the presence. Sometimes you don't have to say very much. Sometimes people just look at the Buddha and they say, wow, what happened to you? I was going to say, no, I was not going to say that. I was going to say, what happened to you, mate? But that would not be very, not very nice. Sometimes it's funny in Australia, you get called mate all the time, which is kind of very endearing. It's kind of the Australian way. But to the Buddha, we better not say that to the Buddha. That would be going too far. But it's like, what happened to you? People can feel that something amazing happened. So sometimes you don't even have to teach. You just know when you are in the presence of someone like the Buddha that this is extraordinary. And so faith arises either by seeing or by conversation or by a combination of the two. And that faith becomes like a tether. Once you have faith, it's like you become tethered to the Dhamma. You can't really let go anymore. And that sounds kind of scary, because if you are tethered, maybe you become like a slave. Maybe now you don't have your freedom anymore, you are tethered. But the whole point is, of course, that you are tethered regardless. A tether is a given fact of life. We are all going to be tethered because we all grasp, we all cling, we all attach. The question is, what do we attach to? And if you attach to the royal bull elephant, you are tethered to something very positive, something that will lead you in the right direction. You can choose good tethers or bad tethers. You cannot choose no tethers. So this is the point. So that faith is a good kind of tether that allows you to be led out of the elephant wood. The royal elephant leads the wild elephant out into the open. So what is the open? And I think in this simile, the open is maybe means like ordination. We were talking about before, we saw that briefly, we will see it again, that the lay life is often considered confined in the suttas. It's a confinement because you have so many things happening in your life and so many people and so much stuff. Whereas monastic life, there's less activity, less people, less things going on. So coming into the open could here mean the monastic life. Could also mean the giving up of sensuality, because sensuality is considered a confinement. It could mean a combination of the two. And probably it has, it is not very clearly defined, so it means pretty much whatever you want. But the overcoming of the defilements come a little bit later, so it's more likely to mean becoming a monastic, I think, in this case. It is only then that it comes out into the open. Basically, there's no way you're going to come out into the open unless you are tethered. For a wild bull elephant clings to the elephant wood. We cling to our ordinary possessions in life. We cling to all the connections that we have in the world. We cling to that lay life. It's hard to give up. It seems to be, there's so many pleasures and so much happiness to be had in ordinary life as well. You don't know what you're giving up. What are you going into? Maybe you're going to have a miserable time as a monastic, and then you give up all your happiness in lay life. I'm not going to take that chance. I'm going to keep on clinging to that beautiful, delightful elephant wood. That's kind of what the wild bull elephant thinks. So you have to somehow get this into someone's mind that actually there is a greater happiness to be achieved. Then the tether works. And so you come out and maybe you ordain. Then once you have ordained, then you dig a large post into the earth. That large post is actually basically the Dhamma. And then you tether, that the tether is mindfulness, you tether or maybe that's the body actually in this case, maybe the post is the body. So you tether the mindfulness to the body, and so you have mindfulness directed to the body. That's, I think, the likely meaning here. And then based on that mindfulness directed to the body, you subdue the wild behaviors, the wild memories and thoughts, and the wild stress, weariness and fever. Lots of wild here.
Ajahn, in the sutta, the Buddha explains that is the mindfulness established on the body.
So that's what I said.
And going on to the out is also explained as coming into monastic life.
Okay, is it? Okay, good, thank you. I didn't even read that, so that's good. So, so you subdue, and the wild behavior here, of course, is basically the cravings that are based on the sensory world. That's the wildness of the mind, because the mind doesn't become peaceful. The mind races around. The mind is agitated and restless. So that is the problem. And so you subdue that by mindfulness directed to the body. Mindfulness directed to the body here is very broad. It doesn't just mean that you are mindful of the body. It means things like sense restraint. It means things like sati sampajanya, the mindfulness and situational awareness or clear comprehension and these kind of things. So it's very broad. It means you have a general mindfulness of your conduct and what is happening with you. That's really what it means. Can also mean directed to the body in the sense of contemplating the body, but has many different meanings.
Anapanasati as well?
It does, but that's, sure. It does anapanasati as well, absolutely, So you subdue all the wild things, and this happens then after you have entered the monastic life, based on mindfulness of the body. Kaya gata sati. And it makes it happy to be within a village, and instills behaviors congenial to humans. So the village here, I would understand to be the Sangha, because you have taken it out of the woods, so you make it happy to be in the Sangha. Once you subdue the fevers of lay life, well, then the Sangha life becomes natural. It just becomes easy, and you instilled behaviors congenial to humans. I guess congenial to the Sangha, but also congenial to the wild elephants. So you become congenial to everyone, basically. And then you become the new elephant, the new royal elephant who goes back into the wilderness and drags out more wild elephants. And in this way it kind of goes on and goes on, maybe. He speaks in ways that are mellow, pleasing to the ear, lovely, going to the heart, polite, likable, and agreeable. Yeah, so you do overcome this, first of all, the kind of the biggest defilements of the mind, and then the teacher, the royal elephant, speaks in this way. It's interesting. How should Dhamma be spoken? What is the right way to teach? This is the right way to teach. If you want someone to listen to teachings, it has to be done in a way where people enjoy listening. If people think that your voice is grating and harsh and negative and divisive and full of empty chatter, sampapalapa, which is the Pali word for chatter. Sounds like chatter, right? Sampapalapa. It's very funny. When I go to Indonesia, the Malay word or the Bahasa Indonesia word for rubbish is sampa. So I go there and I said, Sampapalapa. Everyone was laughing when I said that. I went, what's going on? Okay, sampa means rubbish. They have rubbish bin, it says sampa on the side. Exactly the same spelling here. Because it is the same word. Indonesian language is full of Sanskrit and Pali words, that's why. And so you have to speak in the right way if you want to be a good teacher. It has to be mellow and gentle, right? I was just listening to Ajahn Brahm yesterday when he was giving his talk, and the way he speaks is just very soft and slow and gentle and kind, and it's very easy to listen. It's like you're drawn in. You want to listen to that kind of speech. And this obviously matters because some of your personal qualities obviously come out in how you speak. So, yes?
Ajahn, also for the monastics in the thing, it's very common to also say, because we living in community, that in both in private and in public, you have acts of, you speak gently, your acts are gentle, the way you look also gentle, the way you think about. So it's also for the harmony as well, because that's also an important aspect.
Right, yeah. So, so that, exactly. So it is basically part of the training, yeah. Okay. The wild elephant wants to listen. It lends an ear and applies its mind. If you speak in the right way, then you will want to listen. Especially when your defilements are already going down. It can be very hard to listen if your defilements are very large or very powerful. If you have a lot of negative thoughts or strong desires, actually listening to the Dhamma is quite hard. But the more calm your mind is and the more even it is, the more easy it is to listen to the Dhamma. Because actually your mind inclines towards that. Defilements makes the mind incline towards the world, makes it very difficult to listen. So you are mellow. You have the mellowness, which is the metta, if you like, aspect. And then you have the overcoming of the defilements, which is the overcoming of the desires. And that mixture of metta and no desires is powerful here. Then you listen. And you listen. And this is similar to what Venerable Karunika was talking about before in the Kittagiri Sutta. You want to understand. What is this? What is the Buddha talking about? What is this in the suttas? What's going on here? This will probably make me really happy. So what's going on? The elephant trainer rewards it with grass, fodder and water. So this is probably deep Dhamma. Yeah, you get some really deep Dhamma. That's the grass, fodder and water, because it makes you satisfied. Just like a good meal. I'm not sure if grass is a good meal, but anyway, that's kind of, for the elephant, it's probably a good meal. Nutriment of some sort, ahara maybe. And the nutriment on the path, of course, is Dhamma teachings. And so you get rewarded by those Dhamma teachings. When the wild elephant accepts those Dhamma teachings, the trainer knows now the wild elephant will survive. And that acceptance of the Dhamma teachings might mean stream entry, perhaps. Yeah, you will really survive, because once you become a stream enterer, then there is, only one highway to happiness. End of dukkha. And then once you are a stream enterer, you have to carry on practicing the path. Pick it up, sir. He calls the elephant sir. Isn't that kind of cute? Yeah, Sir Elephant. It's like there's even, that may sound silly, but there's another place where there's a trumpet, and they say to the trumpet, "Speak, Mr. Trumpet, speak, Mr. Trumpet." They want to hear the sound of the trumpet. That's even more, or Sir Trumpet. That's even more kind of interesting. So speaks to the elephant, with kindness, calling him sir.
And respect as well.
And with respect, as you mentioned before, or maybe madam. Forward madam, back madam. Stand sir, sit sir. And it's kind of interesting. Usually when we are told these things, we say, oh, shut up, I don't want to hear any more instructions. But here, you just do it, right? Isn't that beautiful? Because you know it is for your own benefit. You know this is good. So whatever the Buddha says, you actually listen. You take it on board. When the wild elephant follows the trainer, then the trainer sets the task called imperturbability. Now you have trained and trained and trained. You're coming to the final task. Imperturbability means that you are unshakable, immovable, you are solid, you can stand your ground. And this is incredibly important in the Dhamma. Imperturbability refers to the very high states of samadhi, like the fourth jhana especially, when the mind is so solid, it cannot be moved by anything. And this is incredibly important because if you want to have insight into the deepest nature of things, like non-self or whatever, you have to be very strong, because without that strength, your mind is going to be frightened maybe. It's going to start to shake. You're not going to be able to deal with the real world as it is, because it is just goes too much against the grain. That's the problem. So you have to be imperturbable.
Ajahn, the previous one, going forward, going backward, can it also mean the sati sampajanya as well? In the gradual training that comes just before the imperturbability?
Yeah, it means all of these things, right? It means it means the meditation, the satipatthanas, it means the first jhanas, all of that is part of that. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And so you get that task, and the wild bull elephant endures being struck with spears, swords, arrows, and axes. It endures the thunder of drums, kettle drums, horns, and cymbals. So you endure all of this kind of warlike situation. It's like being struck by the reality of deep insight. When you have to see the impermanence and the uncertainty and unreliability of all phenomena, you have to see dukkha, the suffering, to its very core. You have to see that there is no self there. There's no one inside. It's just this continuous changing phenomena all the time. This is really hard to see because we are heavily invested in that sense of self. Even though it may be completely false, we are invested in falsehood. And now reality is going to kind of come. You have to be incredibly strong. So this is like Mara with his armies. Remember before the Buddha's awakening, Mara would come with all his daughters. I don't know, daughters, maybe some sons as well, I'm not sure. But all of these enticing things, which would be the sensual things of the world, or maybe the sense of self or whatever. And this is a bit like that. This is an alternative view of that thing that happened to the Buddha before his awakening. Then what happens? So when it endures all of these things, then it is worthy of a king, fit to serve as a king, and considered a factor of kingship. In other words, you have been able to withstand the onslaught of Mara's armies, then you become an arahant because you're able to see all of those things, and then you become a factor of the king. This is like nobility. You become a noble one. You become an arahant, and you kind of end up as the happiest person in the world. The one with least dukkha, the one with most happiness, the one with the greatest metta compassion, the one with the most clarity of mind, the one with the most wisdom, the one with the most everything you could possibly like, is right there for your taking. Good news, right? So that is the simile. What next? So now what we want to do is we want to have a look at some of the early factors of the gradual training. So the simile gives a nice overview, and now we're going to delve into the various aspects. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, so we can have a bit of discussion afterwards. But again, just to remind you of the main outline of the gradual training. So there you are, the Buddha arising, hearing the teaching, gaining faith, going forth, and then you have all the factors that are basically the Noble Eightfold Path. You have seclusion in there, and then eventually ending with the 3 higher knowledges. So we're going to look at the first 2 or 3 of these today, and then we're going to carry on with the remaining ones in the workshops later on. So let's see what this has to say. We're going to focus on Majjhima Nikaya 27, the Chulahati Padopama Sutta. Okay, so how does the gradual training start? Now this is already really, really interesting. Because usually when you think about you are going to train, you would think, okay, what do I have to do? That's kind of usually how you think about the idea of training. But the Dhamma is different. Your training does not begin with what you have to do. It begins as follows. A Buddha arises in the world. And this is very interesting and very profound. That without a Buddha arising in the world, there is no training. The Buddha is arising in the world is how everything starts. Like Venerable Karunika was saying before, when the Buddha arises in the world, it's like right view becomes available in the world. Before a Buddha arises, there is just darkness. There is like a veil, there's a curtain that kind of blocks out the sunlight, blocks out the reality, and we cannot see what is going on. A Buddha is who gives us, is the eye of the world, who gives us that opportunity to see what is happening here. And so the Buddha gives us the highest gift that one human being can give to another human being. He gives us that vision of how the world actually is. Without the Buddha, there isn't that vision, and so we're all walking around in darkness. Isn't that's really interesting? So that nothing is really available without the Buddha existing in the world. So the Buddha arising in the world, what does that mean, that the Buddha arises in the world? It sounds a bit mystical, somehow the Buddha just kind of comes out of nothing or whatever. But what it just means that someone, a person somewhere, becomes enlightened. That's really all it means. Someone finally is enlightened, and then you have the kind of a Buddha arising in the world. And so that's what it means. That's the starting point of this whole path. And it points to another very important part of the Buddhist training, and that is the idea of non-self. There isn't any... This is the kind of the conditioning that is required on you to be able the path to happen. It is all about conditioning. The Buddha arises, and then you are conditioned in a particular way, and that allows the training to happen. Without that conditioning, the training doesn't happen because you are conditioned the wrong way. There isn't a self that somehow stands apart from those conditions that can make a choice. I will practice in the right way. It is this non-self idea. You're kind of pulled along here. The right view arises in the world, and then the training happens as a consequence. So the Buddha arising in the world is kind of the fundamental thing here of this whole training. So what is this Buddha? Who are the Buddhas in the world? And one important point about the Buddha, which I think to me makes Buddhism such an attractive teaching or spiritual path, is the fact that the Buddha is a human being. A Buddha arising in the world doesn't mean that there is some kind of strain, some kind of metaphysical or philosophical idea of the world that we follow. It doesn't mean that it's taught by a God. It doesn't mean that it is kind of received from somewhere far away or anything like that. It's actually one human being realizing reality. There's something to me very beautiful about that, because it is very tangible. We know other human beings, and if another human being can realize something, it is something that we can relate to straight away. We know that there are wiser people in the world and less wise people in the world. So why shouldn't there be someone who has achieved the highest kind of wisdom? It kind of fits with our understanding of the way the world is. And to me, this is such a very down-to-earth, grounding part of the Buddha's teaching, that it is about human beings. One human being realizes something, passing on that information to others. There's another aspect of the Buddha arising in the world. But you will notice one of the strange things about this as well is that it says a Buddha arises in the world. It doesn't say how the Buddha arises in the world. From before the Buddha arises, there is no path. Because that's why you can't be enlightened. This is the beginning of the path, is the Buddha arising. So how does that Buddha arise if there is no path, if there is no teaching? And from the early Buddhist point of view, there isn't really such a thing as the Bodhisattva path in early Buddhism. It doesn't really exist. It does exist in Theravada Buddhism, but Theravada Buddhism is not always early. Theravada Buddhism is a mixture of early and late. And according to the early suttas, it's more like a random thing. Occasionally someone through random cause and conditions happen to have all the right conditions together that somehow they're able to make a breakthrough. But there's no one really practicing a systematic path. Because that path doesn't exist until the Buddha arises. And so that's kind of why this whole thing is a bit scary. If there's kind of random, when does the next Buddha arise? When does Maitreya Buddha come to be? Should we maybe wait for Maitreya Buddha? Maybe the Dhamma as we have it now is so corrupted anyway that we don't really know if it's true or not. So maybe we should forget about this current, just wait for Maitreya to come around. Because Maitreya is supposed to come around, right? Sadhu, Maitreya, yes, Maitreya, please come and save me. It's a very dangerous idea. First of all, Maitreya Buddha is mentioned once in the suttas, and that sutta does not have a parallel, that mention in other suttas, other traditions. So the whole idea of Maitreya Buddha is just a pie in the sky. Yes, there will be future Buddhas. We have no idea when, where, and we have no idea if we will recognize that Buddha. I like this idea. I think people are quite conceited if they think they will recognize the Buddha when that Buddha arises. How will you recognize that Buddha? Remember in the suttas, our Buddha Gautama, he decides to teach. On the way to teachings, he meets Upaka. And Upaka meets the Buddha and says, wow, look at you. Wow, your faculties are so pure and bright. Who is your teacher? And then the Buddha says, I have no teacher, I am the victor. And then Upaka says, whatever, right, okay, sure. And then he kind of shakes his head and wags his tongue and puckers his brows and walks off in the wrong direction, right? That's kind of what you have there. And so, wouldn't we be like Upaka? Why do we think we would even recognize that Buddha? If you walk down the street in Fremantle, the Fremantle is maybe the most wacky neighborhood in, I don't know, is it? I'm not sure in Perth. I should be careful what I say. That's where you have some maybe spiritual teachers and various kind of things. And a guy comes on it and says, oh, I'm the Buddha. What would you do? You probably run away, right? You would be scared. There's no way you would just agree to that. And so it's very difficult to recognize a Buddha arising in the world. So we should understand how rare it is to be in the presence of this kind of teaching. How urgent it is to do the practice now. Buddhas arise very, very rarely. And when they arise, the chances of recognizing that person is very small. So this is the opportunity. This is the chance. Thinking like this helps you in kind of getting on with it, Not waiting, not kind of waiting tomorrow is the right day. This is the opportunity. If I don't take it now, what's going to happen in the meantime? Don't know. Maybe I will miss the next 50 Buddhas, and that will take another 100,000 eons, and after 100,000 eons, maybe I get another chance. Please don't wait for 100,000 eons. You may have a lot of suffering in those 100,000 eons. So this is part of the message here. The Buddha arises in the world. It's an astonishing and marvelous and very rare event, and we should take advantage of that event happening now and not waiting into the future. May I have some more coffee? Yes. Thank you. So I'm taking a little bit too much time here, but it's kind of, I don't know, I like this. This is the gradual training, and it's really worthwhile. Thank you so much. this is the gradual training, and this is really worthwhile considering a little bit what is going on here. So the Buddha arises. What happens then? So this is the nature of a Buddha. Yeah, he, maybe she, there is an argument that maybe it can be she as well, but so anyway, is perfected, fully awakened, accomplished in knowledge and conduct, holy, knower of the world, supreme guide for those who wish to train, teacher of gods and humans, awakened, blessed. So this is the nature of a Buddha. So this is how you recognize the Buddha, is if they have those qualities. But because you don't have those qualities, you will not recognize it, because it's hard to see. You will notice that, very interesting, this is a very down-to-earth kind of description. There's nothing there about supernormal powers. There's nothing about amazing and remarkable qualities. It's very, very grounded. It's about knowledge, and insight. It's about understanding the world. And this is what we kind of expect of a great teacher, that they understand the world as it actually is. That they have a conduct that aligns with that insight, that understanding, that they are a supreme guide, they are a supreme teacher, because that understanding allows them to teach others in the same way, and that they are superior to any other beings. That's why they're also teacher of the gods. So it's a focus on their understanding, and the focus on their ability as a teacher is really what kind of lies at the root of what it means to be a Buddha. This is, by the way, is a standard formula that you find in the suttas. This is the Itipiso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho formula that we chant all the time as Buddhists. And this is the English translation of that. It's worthy of contemplation. Very, very powerful little statement. And you can draw that out for a long time. Usually when I teach a retreat, I usually spend at least an hour just on that formula. So, maybe, no, we're not going to spend that hour now. I'm just contemplating for a second, but no, that's not going to work. So let's let that be, and let's move on. He realizes with his own insight. So you realize with your own insight, again, this idea that this is not learned from anyone else. The insight into the Dhamma that is truly valuable is the insight that you have for yourself, because you know it is true. So in the meantime, it is all just maybe. You may have faith in the Buddha, but you don't really know who the Buddha is until you gain a similar kind of insight. You don't know, you may have faith in rebirth, but you don't know there is rebirth until you see it for yourself. It's important to have this distinction between knowledge and faith. They are two different things. So this is the Buddha's own insight, and this is why it is so important. So what is it that he realizes? This is kind of interesting. What is it that he realizes? I think you will be surprised to see what it is. Some of you will know it already because you read the suttas. Can you remember it now? It's kind of remarkable. What does the Buddha realize? He realizes this. This world, with its gods, maras and brahmas, this population with its ascetics and brahmins, gods and humans. It's kind of strange, isn't it? What happened to non-self? What happened to impermanence? What happened to dukkha? What happened to the five khandhas? What happened to dependent origination? This sounds very basic. And the point is that it is supposed to be an approximation to the insight of the Buddha coming from an ordinary point of view, so we can understand what it is about. You understand this world. That implies all of these things I just talked about. It implies the three characteristics: impermanence, non-self, and dukkha. It implies dependent origination. It implies all of that. So you're understanding the world means seeing the world in the right way. And understanding that world means understanding in all its diversity, not just the human world, but the gods. If there are gods, you want to know about them. And if there aren't any gods, well, then you want to know that. But at least you want to know, because everyone believes in gods. At least until recently, until they decided that there was like only one God, but before that all societies believed in many, many gods. I believe in, I think many gods to me seems more likely than one god. So you believe in God, Maras. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? That's kind of the tempters in Buddhism. Brahmas, the really high gods. And so the idea here is the understanding of the entire world with all the elements that belongs to that world. The population with its ascetics and Brahmins. And this implies the various kinds of spiritual teachings that are available in the world, because the ascetics and Brahmins are the ones who give these spiritual teachings to the world. So the Buddha has this insight into the world at large, and also all the philosophies and the spiritual teachings that are supposed to pertain to that world. He understands all of these things, gods and human beings. So actually, this is quite a wide understanding of things. And if you understand all of that, then you also understand suffering and happiness. You understand the laws of karma, how these things arise. You understand dependent origination, or comes as part of this. But it's a simple way of thinking about all of that. So this is what he has understood with his own insight. Then what happens? He makes it known to others. So you want to come? Please come in. Please enter. You must come in. Please come in. Okay. Oh, that is okay. That's one of our friends. Okay, that's fine. So you make it known to us. So first of all, the Buddha arises in the world. That is right view becoming available in the world, and then you pass that right view on to others. This is making it known. Then it becomes available to others. So you teach all of these things to other people afterwards, or gods, or whatever. So this is kind of when the Buddha's compassion awakens. Finally he knows, I understand, I can be of benefit to human beings, I will be of benefit to human beings. So making it known, he teaches the Dhamma that is good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. Dhamma is always good. It's good when you first hear it. It's good when you practice a little bit. It's good when you enter samadhi. It is good when you reach the end of the path. It is good at every stage. Sometimes you hear about spiritual teachings that say you must have a lot of dukkha in the beginning, and that dukkha will lead to sukha. A lot of suffering will lead to happiness. This is kind of the Hindu teachings. You torture the body, and when you torture the body, you can somehow achieve happiness. The Dhamma is not like that. The Dhamma is happiness all the way through. So use that as a guide for knowing whether you're practicing in the right way. It should always lead to some positive results if you practice it in the right way. That doesn't mean that there is no suffering, because there is, of course, need for restraint, and these things can be a bit painful, but there should always be some positive aspects. Okay. It is meaningful and well phrased. Sa'attang, savyanjanang. And so well phrased, right? Everything here is so important. The Dhamma is well phrased. The Buddha doesn't speak quickly. The Buddha speaks after contemplation. The Buddha goes on retreat, in the suttas, I think in part to contemplate the Dhamma, how to articulate it. After his awakening, apparently he spent a long time at the roots of various trees, contemplating what he had experienced. It's very hard to put it into words. Remember, you have a flash of insight that makes him a Buddha or an Arahant, and that flash of insight somehow has to be transformed into words. Imagine how difficult that is. It doesn't come with words, the insight. It is just a remarkable experience of reality. And so the Buddha contemplates this. And for that reason, we can always assume that the most powerful way of phrasing the Dhamma is done by the Buddha, because he really had to contemplate to understand what is going on. Everyone else in the history of Buddhism have lent on the word of the Buddha, but leaning on that, they make their own teachings. They never had to contemplate as deeply. So the phrasing of the suttas is especially powerful and especially accurate and precise. So when you read them, read them with that reverence in mind. These are specially thought out and articulated words. Sometimes, yes, maybe they have been distorted a little bit because of the course of history, and that's why we do comparative studies like we did today. We look at the suttas in comparison, and that is very important. But as a general approach to the Dhamma, remember that the Buddha has taught this after very careful investigation of what is going on. And sometimes people prefer to read all kinds of teachers and things, but actually no, give priority to the suttas. That these are by far the most powerful and accurate expression of awakening and of enlightenment itself. So they are well phrased, and they have a meaning, sa-attang. They have a purpose, they have a goal, they have a meaning. The meaning and the phrasing go together. So you express the meaning, you have to understand the phrasing, and then you have to determine the meaning from that phrasing. This is called interpretation. And both of the things have to be right. And there are instructions in the suttas for how to arrive. If monastics disagree on the phrasing or the meaning, there are instructions given for how to arrive at the right kind of meaning and instruction. Right kind of phrasing and the right kind of meaning. So these are these things. It's special. The point I'm trying to make is that the word of the Buddha is special in the Buddhist tradition. He reveals a spiritual practice that is entirely complete and pure. The practice, the spiritual path of the Buddha is complete. There is nothing missing. You don't need the Abhidhamma. I like to say this many times. You don't need anything external, really. You need a little bit of interpretation, you need a little bit of understanding, but you don't actually need anything else. These are complete in their own right. And they are pure. One of the things that is so powerful to my mind about the suttas is that when you read them, you get this feeling that they are wholesome through and through. It is impossible to justify violence through the suttas. It is impossible to justify war. It is impossible to justify anything bad, really. There is a purity to the word of the Buddha that is very, very difficult to find in any other spiritual tradition quite in the same way. There's a wholesomeness to it, an integrity to it that is kind of extraordinary. You'd think that someone who taught for 45 years occasionally would say something dodgy. But no, there's nothing dodgy really in the suttas. If you want to justify violence in Buddhism, you have to, you can never really do that based on the suttas. You have to do it based on other things. And of course, people do that, but not based on the suttas. I'm enjoying this, but I think maybe I should stop, even though I'm enjoying it, because I think this might be a good place, because time is going so fast. And it's good to have a little bit of interaction as well towards the end. And so I will stop there, and I will leave the next phrase, next stage, into the good hands of Venerable Karunika Ajahn Mudito, so they can carry on with that next time. But for now, I would like to invite you all to comment, to ask questions, and see what happens. So please.
Thank you, Ajahn. Thank you, Ajahn and Venerable, for a nice workshop. What would you say? What does it mean to memorize the teachings nowadays? Is it like a significant to actually memorize a lot of teachings as they did in the oral tradition, or does it mean something else nowadays?
To me, it's not like word-to-word remembering, but I find it very helpful to know the word of the Buddha, the instructions. So it's not remembering the entire sutta maybe, but the important parts I have found very helpful, like whatever I've learned all my time in the past 20 or 25 years. They just come up now even when I have something that I need to resolve. The word of the Buddha then comes because I have actually put it. It's different to when you just hear something and you go to actually you retain it. Retain is just temporary, and then when you memorize means that it actually has gone in. And the good thing is, actually, even if you get Alzheimer's in your later years, stuff that you actually really put in earlier is still there. I see this. There are some of monastics who are older and who have a little bit of Alzheimer's and dementia that I know. Even though they don't remember day-to-day things, when they come to speak out of the Dhamma, all those beautiful things just still come out beautifully. So it's really nice to know. So that's the part. It's not the whole thing, but what inspires you, what is important for you to apply, to remembering it. Yeah, that's how I understand.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think understanding. I mean, obviously, you need to memorize things like the Noble Eightfold Path, but I'm sure you know that already when we go. And so you know the basics. But there are some monastics who actually do memorize entire suttas. And Bhante Sujato, he told me that he memorized the entire Satipatthana Sutta with all the details, right? It takes like 1 hour to recite it or something like that, because it's so many details in that if you expand it fully, or maybe more than an hour. So some people enjoy, if you have a really good memory, some people do, I don't know about you, but if you do, then that can be very useful, and you go off into a forest kuti far away with no computer and no nothing, and you kind of have the suttas in your head. There's a very famous monk from who lived in Sri Lanka. He was a German monk, and he stayed at the island hermitage, Venerable Jnana Vimala. We have it on the wall in the monastery. And he did that. He spent his time there 10 years at the island hermitage, which at that time was one of the really good places to get training in Sri Lanka. At least in theory, I'm not sure in practice. These things always get a reputation afterwards, but at the time you never know what it was like. And he learned suttas by heart, certain suttas. And then he walked around the island, didn't have any books. This was before the time of computers, and he had almost no belongings, and just wandered around the whole island with the suttas in his mind. And that's what he did, and that's how he practiced his how he spent his life as a monastic. So some people do that, and it's kind of extraordinary. When you hear the stories, like, wow, that's amazing. So, anyway.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ajahn. I just thought of making a comment. Actually, comment arose when Ayya Karunika was talking about that. I think the sutta you were referring was Sotanugata Sutta, that hearing when you are after your death. The number came back to me. It's not memorizing, but remembering. I think it's Anguttara 4191. So when you were telling about that after death, you will hear. I think Buddha gave another simile in that number of drums. I think he mentioned kettle drums. Mm-hmm. And if you have listened to kettle drum, and then when you hear the kettle drum, you will remember. He said, if you have listened and retained the Dhamma, and then after the death, you will remember it. So it's what you mentioned that, I think you mentioned, that's what you meant, I think, Ayya. So that's what, I thought that I will make that comment, but it's not me, but it's the conditioning by Ajahn Brahmali and Bhante Sujato, so it's not me. And also, I have a short, slight question. And that in that sequential practice, Ajahn, would you say it's a general sort of thing that when you take the path in the three components, Sila, Samadhi, Prajna, so if you take those three separately, when you say Sila, it is right speech, right action, right livelihood. Yeah. So those three go together, and then you practice that. And then Samadhi, of course, the Samadhi, and then I think the Sammavayam also comes under that. And then those three, and then also Sammasati, they are together. So I think that's what the Mahachattārisika 117, MA 117, it says it goes around, and then so if we look at it that way, then we can practice separately, but within that little cell, within that component. What do you say, Ajahn?
Yeah, so I think I think it's separate in the sense that when you start out, you may not be able to achieve any samadhi. Samadhi may be impossible for you, and so you have to start somewhere else to make samadhi possible, and that is probably sila. Yeah, and but even when you practice that sila, it will take a degree of mindfulness and effort and right view to do that. But it's a very preliminary kind of effort and mindfulness and right view that you use at that time. And then as your sila strengthens, then those other factors, the effort, the right view, the mindfulness, they also strengthen to strengthen the sila. And eventually, through that process, you come to samadhi. And then when you have samadhi, of course, then the virtue, you're still practicing the sila, because the sila then becomes really strong when you get to samadhi, because then you have the ability to lead the mind in the right way, far more powerfully as a consequence. So at that point, they are no longer separate. Then sila and samadhi really get practiced together. And then when the samadhi is strong enough, it leads to the wisdom, yeah? And then all three become stabilized through the wisdom. All three are practiced together. So there is a sequence, and there's also a way in which they reinforce each other and build up. This is what Venerable Karunika was saying before. Yeah, the sequential and reinforcement happening, and the building up of the qualities. Do you want to say anything?
No, that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Yeah.
What you are saying, Ajahn, is that we have to have some basic right view to begin with, like in the Jata Sutta, Sile Patityaya Narasapanyo.
Absolutely.
Wise one. Sadhu.
Thanks. Can I say something? Yeah. Thanks for today's workshop, The Gradual Path Towards Enlightenment. Very interesting, yeah. The Buddha was said to be the fully enlightened one. I repeat, fully enlightened one. My question is, can enlightenment be measured or not? For example, like any of the people, be 20% enlightened, 30% enlightened, 50% enlightened, 70% enlightened? Anyone can answer.
Okay. Oops. Oh, okay. Get it. So, one of the things about this is many different angles you can take on that question, Eddie. But thank you for asking a kind of a short question. That was really cool. Yeah, that was really nice. Yeah, that's great.
Not
yeah. Sorry. Anyway, I just thought I would compliment you for that. That was very good. So I think either you have right view or you have wrong view. Yeah, and this is so in one sense, either you are fully or really enlightened, or you are not. And this is the idea we were talking about before, about the path being both gradual and instantaneous. Yeah, at the moment of stream entry, it is instantaneous. The insight leads to right view, bang. Before you had wrong view, after you have right view. So in that sense, it is there is 100% enlightenment or right view, or 0% in that sense. On the other hand, it is also true that there's a gradual improving of your view as you go along the path. When through your meditation practice, you will see that certain things are impermanent, certain things are non-self, and your view becomes more clear. There's less confusion. So in that sense, there is a gradual clearing things up, and so you can say that you are becoming a bit more enlightened, a bit wiser as a person. So there's two different angles of looking at it. One is this gradual improvement in wisdom, and then the final one, or you can argue that either you have wrong view or you have right view. Am I making any sense, Eddie? Yeah? Okay. Glad to hear that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Ajahn and Ayya. With regard to the Gradual Training and the Noble Eightfold Path, I was just wondering whether it makes sense to compare them. Because one is a very internal perspective, and you're not talking about something being completed before the next stage arises. Whereas the Gradual Training, to me, looks like it's a very external perspective, and the differences in order sort of make sense.
Yeah. Yeah,
I wasn't paying too much attention.
Okay, all right. I don't know. I think both of them can be considered both internal and external perspectives, actually. If you expand the Noble Eightfold Path and you look at right effort and you kind of pull out all the definitions of right effort and right mindfulness, you're starting to get fairly close to the gradual training already, because those expansions actually, some of them are a bit different, but some of them are also very much similar to what happened in the gradual training. The 4 jhanas are the same, the ethical parts are the same. And so I think that I would say both of them have an external and an internal perspective. And so they kind of, that's how I would see it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So, sorry if that wasn't a very good answer, but that's all I can do for the moment.
Is it okay to ask a question?
Please.
Yeah. Thank you for answering questions, because that's the way that I learn verbally. And I appreciate the point you made today about studying the suttas, which I'm embarking upon. But my question is, what part does investigation and knowing things for yourself experientially play into what you were talking about, memorizing and remembering suttas? Is it only a combination of experiential and academic and contemplative knowledge that you carry forward to your next life or next existence?
So the process first starts, you take from the teachings from the Buddha, because he was the one who discovered the right view. So you take it on board as knowledge first. And then you apply it. And as you're meditating, and then you get your own experiences, there is a very beautiful phrase, paccavekkhana, reflecting back. It's a very powerful practice. Sometimes people forget to do this, but you learn a lot from paccavekkhana. There is this paccavekkhana jnana, so that insight that arises from reflecting back. So once you understand the process of reflecting, so as you reflect, the Dhamma that has been retained in your mind comes together to fuel. It's like the gunpowder and the heat coming together to have that bang effect, because you have now experienced, and you also have the word of the Buddha, the right view, coming together to make your own insight very powerful. So yes, you have the teachings, so you need that internalized, and then you practice. And as you practice, and as your practice deepens, and you have certain experiences, then you come out, because you can't do anything, any contemplation. Your mind doesn't move when you're in deep meditation like jhana. But after you come out from deep meditation, your hindrances are down, so your mind is bright, clear. Mindfulness is really powerful. And actually, when you reflect back, you can see everything. Not only at that time, even 25 years later, you can recall that memory, because they're very powerful moments with deep meditation. And you can still reflect back and look into different angles, and you go through different aspects. And then you can still start to get insights, even from one very deep experience throughout your life, as you learn. And this is fascinating. It's nothing wasted. But if you didn't do the paccavekkhana, the reflecting back investigations, nothing much happens. This is when people just have a nice meditation and they think, have a good time. I mean, that doesn't happen with the jhana, because it's so powerful. And if you did have your right view, you can't almost stop it, because you will do it, because it's so powerful. But with most people, if they have just only a little bit of peace, and you just get up and go, you have wasted an opportunity to even gain a little bit of insight. So reflecting is, that's how I practice, and I understand it. Ajahn, what would you say?
Good. Yeah,
I find that my practice, sometimes I'm skeptical. So there's this thing where I question, and then I investigate, and then I discover what Buddha said is right. So then I grow confidence. So it's not a reflection per se, but I got a hypothesis and I'm testing it to see whether what's been written is correct. So is there an investigation part in like that rather than reflection?
Yes, absolutely. I would say so. Because you are. The whole practice is, in a sense, trying to verify the teaching of the Buddha. Are they right or not? That's what the practice is about. And of course, as you see that, of course, you will grow in confidence. Your skepticism will gradually, hopefully, disappear. Yeah. So no, absolutely. I think that's a very good way of doing it. But to some extent, there's also the idea that as you grow in confidence, then you will take certain other things on board as well on faith, because you start to realize actually the Buddha was pretty extraordinary, and that helps you to develop the path further. Otherwise, you can stagnate. Things like rebirth. You don't know that, but if the Buddha got all these other things right, why would he speak of rebirth if there is no rebirth? If the Buddha says there's rebirth, then surely there must be rebirth. Yeah, the Buddha said it, for goodness sake. Oh, the Buddha said it, that's a good point. And then that kind of, that makes you, I would argue that people often argue about whether there's rebirth or not. And they talk about modern scientific investigations into rebirth. And I would say the most important reason to believe in rebirth is because the Buddha said so. That's the most important reason. Okay, maybe the evidence is great, but the Buddha said so was even greater. So this is kind of the idea of faith and confidence as you grow.
Thank you both. I just wanted to follow up with that as well, because that's tied into something I got a little bit of insight into when I was on retreat last week. And I just wanted to ask if I'm on the right track with this, but kind of what I realized is that kind of the distinction between doubt and uncertainty or skepticism, where when the doubt was kind of creeping in, it was more that it was like an attack on the premise itself rather than accepting that I don't actually have an answer. So, for instance, if someone told me something and I didn't know, it's better to go with I don't know rather than I doubt it and kind of attack the premise itself. And I was just wondering if that distinction between the doubt and uncertainty is one that's worthwhile to make.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that there's a difference between doubting, saying I don't know, and kind of just being skeptical in a more rejecting kind of way. Is that what you mean?
Pretty much. Like I can say I doubt that I'll do well on a test, for example, instead of just saying that I'm uncertain of how it'll go. Because to me, it's like if I have that level of doubt, it's not. It seems almost ingrained to go into the pessimistic, the negative. It's like attacking the premise that. Yeah. It seems that there's a premise already in there that's like, if I'm doubting I won't do well on the test, it's like I'm doubting that I have the ability. There's more underneath that doubt, if you could say. Yeah. Rather than just accepting a plainer uncertainty where it's more neutral.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, I think that's a very important distinction. Because the idea of being a Buddhist is the idea that you have some sense that the Buddha was awake, and so it kind of should open your mind to new possibilities. That simple fact. So I think that distinction really matters a lot. So have a doubt, say I don't know. It's important to realize that you don't know sometimes as well. A thing like rebirth, okay, maybe you believe in it, or you doubt, or you have uncertainty, but you certainly don't know it until you actually get there. And so it's important also to recognize when we don't know. So to have, in a sense, an openness in both ways, an openness to the possibility, but also recognizing one's own limitations at the same time. And then we find I think, a nice middle way somewhere. But so doubting should not be so strong that it destroys your ability to have faith and confidence in the Buddha. That's when it becomes destructive.
Ajahn, I think we need to...
Wrap up.
One last question from
Okay.
Ajahn Mudito, and then I think we need to round up the session because it's almost 2:50.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's going to be quick ones. It's like Ajahn Brahmali asked me to ask cheeky questions. I'm not sure are these cheeky questions, but you said there's sort of kind of randomness isn't in this process.
Yeah.
But doesn't it appear that the Buddha is a chosen one? That there is this one person. There's not like a random Buddha. We don't have a sutta somewhere like Buddha said, well, I met this another monk or this other person, and he could have been a Buddha, but instead I became the Buddha. He's always talking about me.
Yeah.
So it is like he is a chosen one, and they never talk about this. Like, this is going to be a random, let's say I used to be this so-and-so monk, and, I could have been Buddha, but instead this other one became the Buddha before me. So there seems to be that there is a chosen one, so to speak.
Who chose him?
Or is it just random? Just any Buddha, anybody can rise as a Buddha, and then there's the randomness. That's how it works.
Well, I mean, a chosen one implies a chooser. So there is no chooser, right?
Okay, so you're trying to be cheeky back. But isn't it like they always talk about this, like I was this so and so in the previous lives, and I became I became a Buddha. They never mention about there could have been many Buddhas, so to speak. So it seems to be that there's a seed in somebody to become a next one.
But maybe there is, but you cannot know that seed until you become enlightened. Then you look back, then you can maybe see the process that got you there. But that process happens through cause and conditions that you cannot predict beforehand. It's just afterwards you can see that it happened. And so other people could have become a Buddha, maybe not. Maybe they couldn't. They probably couldn't. Or maybe they would. If the Buddha didn't got enlightened, maybe someone else would have become the Buddha. It's possible.
Right, and then they would have told the story. This was my story.
Right?
But yeah.
Yeah.
But how can they never talk about the other ones?
Well, because they're irrelevant. Why talk about them? It doesn't matter. It's kind of, who cares about those ones?
Are those the usual conversations that go on in the monastery?
These are the secret conversations of the monastery, that's right, yeah. But it's also the interesting thing about the Pacceka Buddhas, right? Because they actually do get enlightened, but there's no teaching from them. And so, So you don't really talk much about those either. There's a Isagili Sutta, which is a very curious sutta in the Majjhima Nikaya about all the Pacceka Buddhas. But it's kind of, yeah. Anyway, so thank you all for coming to this workshop, and we will carry on over the next 4 weekends with the rest of the graduates. We've only seen the starting point so far, and we will see it all the way to the end, all the way to final awakening. So thanks, everyone.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Let's just pay homage to the Triple Gem quickly before we depart. Patipanno